This is the Detroit Sports Podcast Network.
The biggest icon in podcasting.
Welcome everybody to this week's edition of Doc and Jock. I am the Doc, John Macaroon. Joining me as always, my cousin Adam, the Jock Strozinski. We got a lot to unpack this week on the podcast. My goodness, the changes continue at Michigan. Wild news broke earlier this week in regards to Josh Gattis, the text that he was firing off to the athletes that remained, the replacement that Michigan brought in at defensive coordinator. The Lions finally made their choice in regards to who's going to be the offensive leader. And we got to talk about the Pistons and previewing the big game this Sunday. Doing it with me, as always, my guy, coming off of a wedding, having a good old time, trying to brave his way through the mean streets of Detroit and Wisconsin, Adam, the Jock Strozinski. What's up, cuz?
Actually, and I didn't know this leaving, I ended up leaving like Thursday night, like super late, like 10 o'clock at night. And, I had to drive to Minnesota. It was actually in Minnesota. It wasn't in Wisconsin. It was like it was as far west as you could go in Wisconsin and as far east as you could go in Minnesota. Like it was every day I crossed the border between the two states. It was nuts.
Oh,
it was a good time.
Good time. And look, man, it was wild because when we were watching wrestling together, the missus pulled up and she was looking at her apps and she was like, wait a minute, we're going to get 25 inches. I'm like, look, it's never that bad, but it wasn't that great. And it definitely altered your plan. So I'm thankful the drive there and back it was good. Let me just ask you a quick question. Are you good now with long road trips as you get older? I love them because it just reminds me that I'm in control. I know it's tough with the kids because I can drive pretty much 20 hours straight. I can hold it. I got a good bladder. The kids, not so much. The missus, not so much. So inherently, you got to pack in an extra hour and a half to stop because they wanted to stop off and drink and piss and do their thing. So it adds time. Like I can get places pretty reasonably within the time frame that MapQuest will tell you, but I got to add a couple hours because of the family. How are you with it? Were you calm, patient? How were the roads? Would anybody give you the magic finger?
No magic fingers. The first hour of that road trip was bad because it didn't snow all day long on Thursday, and then it started snowing from like 3 to like 9 o'clock at night, and I left at like 10. So it had just got done snowing. The roads weren't really clear, but once I got out past Ann Arbor, it was no problem. So it was just kind of slow that first hour. Now I can go a long distance for a road trip. That drive was about 9 hours. On the way back home, we ended up stopping just outside of Chicago on the way there, and then we stopped in Madison, and then we stopped in Minnesota where we needed to be. So, like, on the way out there, we made 3 different stops, and the stop in outside of Chicago was required because it was like 3 o'clock in the morning here. We had basically been going for 22 hours. We needed to sleep. I was basically making it through on straight caffeine drinks, so like Red Bulls and Monsters. But on the way back home, basically drove a little over 5 hours straight, basically until I had to fill up the truck, until I had to fill up the gas tank. And that was the one stop we made, was to basically fill up and grab something to eat. We did them both at the same time. And that was pretty much it. So I'm similar to you. I can go a long time. I will say this much, 9 hours is about my limit for a day. Like if we're going to go any more than 9 hours, I've got to stop. I need to take a break. And I did all the driving. She offered to drive, but I was like, no, I'll do it. You just kind of sit there and relax a little bit. 9 hours it's kind of a haul, man. And if you could do it, if you can do 20, you're a savage.
Yeah.
9 hours is a bit much. And it's exhausting because it was Thursday night was rush, get to where we got to be, sleep a couple hours, get up. Friday was rush, get to where we got to be. And then everything was kind of set. It was like rehearsal dinner. It was night out with everybody who was there. The next morning woke up, and then by the time the wedding rolled around, we were already crashing because we were just exhausted from getting there. You know what I'm saying? And then you have the wedding. Wedding's a great time. You go to the bar after the wedding, and then next morning you got to get up and you got to leave right away, and you got to like just drive home so you can make it to work on Monday. So it was just kind of a grind. It was those like 3.5 days, 2.5 days, however many days it was just a bit of a grind.
Oof,
but
yeah,
it was good.
Glad you made it. Now you come back and all hell breaks loose at Michigan. And it really, but
I'm driving and you're texting me and you're like, did you see what's going on? And I'm like, what? Oh my, I was so annoyed and so pissed.
Well, I look at it like this, because when you look at it with Jim Harbaugh, we can take a big picture view or we can look at what's really going on here. But bottom line, Jim Harbaugh wears out his coaches. I mean, this is what he does. He goes through his coaching staff, he brings people in, and it's not news. It just makes sense that Jim Harbaugh's personality must be a challenge to work with, in that, maybe there's issues at hand in regards to how much control is allowed, how much respect is given, how things are going with communication. Something's going on, because with Josh Gattis, this was a little bit more public, and it was a situation in which you kind of felt like, okay, once Jim Harbaugh flirted with the National Football League, maybe Gattis had assumed that he was going to be next in line, and when he wasn't given those assurances, he kind of played and felt really disrespected. I mean, to go from Michigan to Miami is really a downgrade in programs. Now, it's probably going to always come down to the green, and the bottom line is Miami could float the money to get him to be $1 million.
I was going to say it was a bit of an upgrade for his contract. He's making way more money now.
Making way more money, but the chances of success, now he's going to be put to the test. I think he would have probably be given a much higher caliber athlete at Michigan than he would be at Miami, but he's got his work cut out for him. But if it works out well, you can leapfrog from Michigan, Miami, all the way to the National Football League if that's the case for Josh Gattis. But the thing that was key, obviously you hear rumors, you hear innuendos, but what he revealed publicly in his text was he felt disrespected by the administration, and he said, hey, if you're not at a spot where people want you, then you got to bust out, and I got to be true to myself. So he felt the ultimate disrespect. But I think the train keeps on rolling. The reaction from a lot of Michigan fans was, from what I saw online, was, look, see ya, don't want to be ya, because they felt like Josh Gattis just wasn't calling plays anyway. His role had been diminished anyway because Harbaugh took it over. And if you're Gattis, you're like, I wanted to bring in speed and space. I wanted to implement some things. But I will say this before I hand it to you to get your opinion. When it comes down to it, maybe he felt like maybe more of his game plan could have been used against Georgia when we said, hey, you got to open it up. You can't pound the rock against Georgia. That's going to be futile. And in the end, Michigan's offense didn't do a whole heck of a lot until the game was out of hand. So maybe he felt like, see, look, yeah, we can win games in the Big Ten and, play smash mouth football, but we want to have success at a higher level. And maybe they didn't listen. So Josh Gattis no longer with Michigan.
Yeah, to me, it was shocking, right? And a lot of it had to do with just the timeline of everything. Like, this is another flip of your assistant coaches. This is another program flip for Jim Harbaugh. He's the one constant, but everybody underneath him has basically been blown out again. He did this last year, and it worked out. It was successful. They won the Big Ten. They were able to get into the college football playoff. They ended up getting blown out in basically their biggest game of the year. Whatever. All that being said, it worked last year. I don't know if it works again this year. That's really hard to do that, where you're constantly adjusting and changing things and blowing things out and then basically reshuffling the deck and trying to put it all back together. I mean, just think about your quarterback. We talk about it at the NFL level, where you've got an assistant that constantly flips in and out, and what that does to your quarterback and how it sets them behind the eight ball, because they're having to learn brand new schemes, brand new play calls, brand new formations. Sometimes the verbiage isn't all the same, and they've got to relearn all that stuff. You're now doing that to these quarterbacks, and we don't know who the starting quarterback's going to be next year. I think we all have a bit of an idea of who it might be, but nothing's concrete right now. So now you're going into that quarterback's room, and you're basically forcing them to have to relearn a whole new scheme, a whole new system. And I don't know if that's necessarily fair to them. Defensively, it's the same thing. you're having your defense have to relearn new things. So instead of building on what you did last year and taking what you did last year and improving it and really honing it in and really refining some of those rough edges, you're basically just kind of rolling the balls out and you're like, all right, let's see what we can do. And nothing ever really gets refined to where it's elite or where it just can function. It's constantly having to be tweaked. I mean, you go back to the beginning of last year's season. Yeah, I know where they ended. That's important. But go back and really look at some of those games earlier in the year and even in the middle of the year. Like that Rutgers game, that was a challenge. At that point, you should have been so refined in everything you did. It doesn't matter who's on the field. You're smashing Rutgers. Rutgers isn't a good football program. You know, there's no reason that you should go up against Nebraska and you're basically clinching your butthole in the fourth quarter and you're counting on a strip sack on Adrian Martinez to turn the ball over so you can get back into position to score and put that game out of hand. Like, you shouldn't be in these positions. At this point of Jim Harbaugh's tenure, year 8, which it's been an embarrassing year between 7 and 8 already, with Jim not really sure if he wants to be there, wants to go to the NFL, wants to come back, wants to go here, whatever. It's embarrassing. All right. It's also embarrassing that you lose coordinators left and right. The only program that can officially lose coordinators at a clip that Michigan paces is Alabama. And it's just because they've got one of the greatest football minds ever.
Nick Saban, baby.
Nick Saban, thank you. Greatest football coach like ever, college football coach ever, and I can't remember his name. But you are now having to hit that reset button, and you have to hit that reset button so damn hard that you're bringing in a brand new defensive coordinator, right? You're bringing in a brand new co-offensive coordinators. You're promoting from within, which is great, but you are now moving all of the deck chairs around, right? You've got your tight ends coach, which is Jay Harbaugh, who's the most tenured coach on this staff, whatever. Let that sink in for a second. He's now moving to defense, and he's been your tight ends coach. Like, wait, what are we doing here? You've got a wide receivers coach now moving to defensive back. It's like you're just moving all the pieces around. Like, do you remember when Michigan State did this? Do you remember when Mark Antonio did this? And do you remember how well that worked out? It really didn't, and we filleted him for it. For you to end up losing Josh Gattis, and I don't know what the inner workings were with Michigan football and that offense as the year kind of wore on. I don't know if Josh Gattis was actually calling plays. I don't know if Josh Gattis was just more impactful with scheming different things up, or if Josh Gattis was just a passing game coordinator where all he focused on was the passing game, wasn't really the OC. I don't know if that was the case or not. But what I do know is it's a really bad look when you are losing assistant coaches and you are constantly having to readjust everything, and then your offensive coordinator, his one last blow before he leaves is like, hey, don't be anywhere you don't want and where they don't want you to be, and I'm out. You know, like, sends that off to the team. That's not great. Now, there are rumors and speculation, and if you want, I'll indulge you in the rumors. Do you want to indulge in the rumors at all, or do you want to keep this a little bit classy?
Yeah, no, it's okay. I think we said on our text exchange, it's undefeated, and it's funny. We'll leave it at that. Is that when you look at it, maybe the administration lost respect for lost respect for Josh Gattis based on his actions with recruits. So we'll see how it works out for
with
both parties.
But parents, we'll say. Let's walk that line with their parents, and you can figure out the rest of what Josh Gattis may have done, may not have done, and with whom he may have done it with. But it's.
Yeah.
Honestly though, when you messaged me that, I was like, what? I was like, you can't be serious. And I was like, this program, like, the fact that it is either a rumor or it's a true story, either way you want to look at it, like, that tells you everything you need to know about where this football program is currently. Like, the fact that that's allowed or was allowed to take place, or the fact that even possibly took place, is just an impropriety that should not have ever happened. And as a Michigan fan, it's embarrassing. Like, it is so damn embarrassing. And it's not like here's the thing. This has now become a 2-week story on this podcast. It's just the embarrassment of the Michigan program right now. And honestly, in my estimation, it all lays at the feet of Jim Harbaugh. I mean, it's so bad. It is so bad. Like, it's obvious to me, and you tell me if I'm reading the tea leaves wrong here. He wanted out of Michigan. He doesn't want to be at Michigan. He wanted out of Michigan. All right? Whether it's because the university is doing whatever the university is doing, whether it's all the unrest with some of the boosters and some of the actual academic side of everything. I mean, you got Mark Schlissel over there emailing different people asking for what is he asking for? He basically wants a little tuggy, but he has a special name for it.
Little room for Knish, baby.
Knish, yeah, a little Knish. So I mean, you've got that all going on. Michigan does not want to wade into the waters with the NIL, and if you want elite athletes, this is where you have to go. And Michigan is like, nah, we're good. We don't want to do that. Doesn't make any sense. Don't want to mess around with the transfer portal. You've got your one of your biggest rivals down the street from you who's like, yeah, we'll mess around with NIL money. Yeah, we'll mess around with that transfer portal. And their new head coach has beaten you 2 years in a row. Like, it seems almost like it is setting Jim up to fail. At least it's making him work harder. And it's obvious he doesn't want to be there. That's why he did all this politicking for an NFL job. And then he goes on the interviews, and whatever happens there. It obviously wasn't good. Then he comes back, I love Michigan, Michigan's great. But then he blows out his entire staff, or his staff feels like they're not wanted and they leave. Or that staff is having improprieties with recruits and their parents. Like, it's a mess. Like, this is like awful. As a Michigan fan, it is horrible to hear your school talked about this way, because it just should never have gotten to this point. Like, Jim, if you don't want to be here, just go. Okay, cool, you're back. Fine, you're here now. Just get the house clean. Like, the house is a complete mess right now. Get the house clean and win football games. It just, I don't know, it's frustrating. I mean, you tell me, am I reading it wrong? Does it seem like Jim Harbaugh wanted to be here?
Yeah, it has the feeling of Jim Harbaugh felt like it was win-win for me, in my mind. Felt like he had an opportunity to go interview with somebody, but you have to read the tea leaves. It's been 7 years. I don't believe the reports that he assumed that he walked in there and felt like he had the job. He went in there, took the interview, learned a little bit, and probably was like, wow, this is what it's going to take. This is everything that, the interview process is nice. It's nice to be courted. But I feel like it was 80-20 in favor of coaching Michigan. He's got a great opportunity there. He's got everything that he wants. He can lose coaches, but he can restock. Dude, look at that schedule. When you look at it, you're sitting there, you're Jim Harbaugh. You're going to start off the season 4-0 almost. Your only tough games are against Penn State, Michigan State, Ohio State. And then you realize, okay, it's not a big deal. That, okay, whatever happens, happens. If I get the job, great. If I don't get the job, I'm coming back to Michigan. People love me, and I'm probably going to get a nice raise back to where at least Mel Tucker's at. So it just has the feeling of everybody else taking it way more seriously than he was, because, look, he lost Mike McDonald, probably had a feeling, reading the tea leaves, that Josh Gattis was gone. But look, they have pipelines. They have opportunities to replace them. Look, Jesse Minter comes in. He's got a relationship with people that he knows, and you just keep it going. And I think that inherently Michigan has kind of the cachet of a position that you can do okay in when you have tenure and you have experience and things like that. Now, will the natives continue to support him if year 8, 9 are not as good? Well, it's yet to be determined, but I don't think the pressure's there on him. He knows he's a good football coach. I know he's got an itch to go back to the NFL. But coming back to Michigan is fine for Jim Harbaugh. He's got a lot of support, and especially with the cachet he built up going to the playoff, it is amazing for him. But he's got to just rebuild. Look, he's got 9 months. It's such a long time. He can repair everything that was done. But the one thing I'll say is, if he keeps doing this, if it happens again next year and he does this full tour, I think this year was more of okay, I'm going to satisfy some things for myself and really enjoy it, because he only had one really formal interview. He took it, and now he's back at Michigan, and he's going to probably enjoy at least 9 wins this year, minimal, because the schedule is so really, in regards to everything, it's so light that you have a pretty good opportunity to have success. So I don't see it to be that big of a deal. I think maybe you find a coordinator that runs your offense a little bit, and maybe a lot more similar than you'd want. So Josh Gattis, look, he moves on, and we'll see how he progresses with it. But I just think that with Michigan, things are going to be okay. It's not that big a deal when the dust settles.
Yeah, I mean, you're probably right. They do benefit from having an extremely weak schedule next season. And I think this is where some of the Michigan fans may become a little bit disillusioned with what's actually going on with this team and with this university. I mean, it's easy to roll in, get 4 or 5 wins right off rip, and you don't actually see any real competition until late September, early October, and you're able to kind of puff up your stats that way. So it's going to be weird to kind of see what happens, I guess, next year. Hopefully the what is it? I think it's like the first 4 games you can basically just have training wheels and just go. Hopefully those first 4 games are like live round scrimmages and they're able to take care of business and they get a lot of these kinks worked out that they'll probably have. But it's just, I don't know, man. If you watched Michigan State kind of go through some of these same trials and tribulations that Michigan's going through, would it not piss you off to the utmost? Because it is just, it's incredibly frustrating.
Absolutely. I don't like this. You'd like a little bit more stability, but at the same time, Michigan is a great opportunity. It's a name, and people are moving around. They're shuffling, and it lends to the factual case that people can say is Jim Harbaugh's not going to keep coaches for decades. You know what I mean? People are going to come in and come out, and he's going to shuffle them through. But for Harbaugh, it's an opportunity to regroup and see what you got with these coaches. I mean, I think that there's an opportunity for the program really to continue some success. Maybe not the highest levels that you saw this year, but there's going to be opportunities. I mean, you got 2 quarterbacks that are really solid, and you got J.J. McCarthy who calmed everybody down, who's like, I'm staying. Don't talk about this transfer portal thing and things like that. So, you know,
who do you think ends up the starting quarterback next year? Do you like? I think you know what you've got with Cade, but do you just give it to JJ and you're like, here's 4 games, go win the job?
Nope, I think it's Cade until he loses it. I mean, how do you take away, at least to start the year, how do you take it away when he got you to the playoff? I mean, it would have to be a drastic, you know, JJ would have to win the job, you know, because Cade, you know, is reliable. He's safe. And for a head coach, that's ultimately what you like, especially, I mean, look, how do you not see Michigan's offense rolling the first couple games? They're playing the likes of Appalachian State. You know what I mean? In essence, they're not playing any competition. So I don't see Cade McNamara struggling to start the year. So I think you just get the same kind of shit that you saw this year, where JJ gets in there, a couple downs, a couple more, things like that, and you keep it moving. So we'll see. But at this point in time, it's Cade's job until JJ takes it. And right now, you're not hearing whispers. The first step is JJ staying, so there'll be competition, which is going to be great for both of them. It's going to be great, you know. And I think it's good for, at least now, for Michigan fan to settle in. Jim Harbaugh's there. Now you got to rebuild the staff and kind of repair everything in his flirtation with the NFL. But Michigan's going to be okay, at least for the next 365 days. And especially with the positive PR with Aiden Hutchinson and everything going on, things are going to turn out okay, at least for the time being. I just can't wait till they play the real competition like Michigan State and they get their tail kicked in, and then we can have the real conversation is you know, where are we at with Jim Harbaugh? Does he take the next step forward again? Does he get back to the mountaintop, or is he going to take a back seat to the rest of the players? And he's got to answer for what he said about Ryan Day. You know he's still in. You don't get to talk shit to Ryan Day and then have that just sit there. So, you know, we'll see what ends up happening. I do want to get your sense, though, now looking and turning our attention to the Detroit Lions, no real surprise, they have named Ben Johnson the OC. And for me, I can't find really any negatives. It was a foregone conclusion. It could have been Deuce Staley, but Ben Johnson is a rising star. I mean, Zach Taylor praised him and said, I'm trying to hire that guy all the time, but he keeps getting promoted. And that's really big praise from a coach that's going to be working in the Super Bowl in a couple days. So that's good news for Ben Johnson. People love him. Smart, analytical, just observing him, definitely organized with the passing game, has kind of an NFL style. But here's the problem. Has no experience calling plays.
Mm-hmm. So
it lends the credence to probably Dan Campbell should just do it. Just call plays and there's a lot of coaches right now, Callahan with the Bengals. He don't call plays. Zach Taylor calls the plays. And they're on the verge of a potentially huge success in a couple of days. So I'm okay whatever Dan Campbell decides. But from reading the tea leaves, I think he's just going to call plays. Sean Payton did it. you let Ben Johnson work with the wide receivers, really scheme up the route trees and the wide receivers and the new offense that you want to kind of put in and your little bit of spin on it. But I think this marriage is probably a lot better, which in my mind now is right, but it kind of gives you a little bit of a demerit, Dan Campbell, for hiring Anthony Lynn. That was probably never going to work. So I would have probably maybe just, really taken a hard look at what was you learn a lot from Lynn's experience as an assistant in the past, a former NFL running back, former head coach, all the experience he has, and the run game protections, you get that knowledge passed down. But it just, it wasn't going to take a lot to assume that maybe was not going to be successful, just based on now looking at it. Sean Payton's aggressive. Look at that offense of the Saints. That didn't look like what the Lions were trying to do. But at the same time, Anthony Lynn got a great position. He jumped up to the 49ers. So he'll have an opportunity to work with Trey Lance and moving forward there. We'll observe that. But I don't see no problem with Ben Johnson. I think it's safe. I think it's the right thing to do. And I think it's going to the offense is probably the most stable thing right now with the Lions. Just add a couple of receivers and you're ready to go.
Yeah, they definitely do need some receivers. I don't know. And the thing is, if you kind of listen to a lot of the talk that was coming out regarding what was going on in season after Dan Campbell took over, it really sounds like Ben Johnson was kind of the really creative mind when it came to formulating some of those plays and setting that offense up to have success. I don't know if that's the case. I hope that's the case. I hope that's kind of where things are. It's weird to me the way that they conducted this search, and it kind of bothers me. I think that's probably my biggest apprehension with it. Like, Ben Johnson getting it, I think was, like you said, it was a foregone conclusion. It was what was going to happen. But you didn't hear them really bring in any big names or any real up-and-comers. It was all kept in-house, and you basically promoted from within. And I think for me, that was kind of my biggest issue with it all, is like, you didn't really go out and talk to anybody else. You, for the most part, you already know what you have with these guys. You worked an entire season with them, and for more than half of that season, they were basically in your offensive room helping you design the plays. So what are we doing here? Like, and like you said, does it make you feel better if Dan Campbell's calling plays? Because I don't know if it really makes me feel all that much better. Yeah, I think he got better as the season wore on. But that being said, you look at kind of from where he started, it was an absolute dumpster fire. And I still have questions about some of his in-game management and some of his in-game play calls when this team is really pressed and really up against it. And I don't mind him being aggressive. I love the aggressiveness. I think that's great. But there's a time and a place to call a play when it's like 4th and 15 or 4th and 23 and you haven't been able to complete anything longer than a 7-yard pass and you're backed up to your own 35-yard line. Like, we have a bit of an issue here. The smart play is for you to punt because you haven't been able to do anything all damn day. So they run a halfback dive. Like, it doesn't work. So, if Ben Johnson's going to come in and he's going to be given the autonomy to be the actual OC and make the play calls, I'm cool with it. If Dan Campbell's still going to be the play caller and Ben Johnson's just there to kind of scheme and game plan stuff, I don't know if I'm really cool with that.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see how this dynamic works out. The most excitement we got was Vito rolling out there that Matt Nagy was going to have an opportunity to have the job, and then somebody else, a coach, going on a podcast and saying it happened. I think that was really kind of really an indicator of how media goes these days and how sometimes information doesn't get filtered exactly the correct way. But hey, that was fun. That was funny for us to see it go down that way. Luckily, when people see this, because, when people go, how does this shit get started? And that gets out there. Luckily, people who are in the know tweeted and said, this is what happened. It kind of was just talked about. It was speculated on our site. And then 2 other sites just said, yeah, it's going to happen. And then it makes its way up to a national podcast where someone says, hey, he's getting hired, which in the end helps us. I can't lie. That was classic because people will look at it like this as a way of breaking news. But remember, speculation's fine. We always read the article because that's where the juice is. The headlines are always going to be the same, in regards to SIL Lions, but it was classic to see. I got a chuckle out of it, and definitely Vito, we gave credit to him for riling it up in the Twitter sphere. But in the end, yeah, it's just going to be a situation where I think the offense is going to be better. Swift is going to be another year in. Hawkinson hopefully stays healthy, takes another step forward. Amon-Ra adding 2 wide receivers. Jared Goff should be a little bit better. So the offense should be fine. The issue is going to be the defense. And unfortunately, that's probably the case, and I think that's where the focus will be heavily in this draft. So that's where I see it. And luckily, just reading the tea leaves, I think Aubrey Pleasant will return. You're hearing that, reports on Wednesday he did interview for the Saints opening at DC since Dennis Allen moved up to head coach. Had interviewed with the Vikings, but I just think he's still raw. Coaching the defensive backs and then jumping to defensive coordinator, maybe just a little too soon for that, but he could be on the hot seat. So we'll see how that plays out if the Lions do indeed lose a coach. But right now things are looking up. It's good to hear that people in the league are respecting the Lions coaches. Because actually, to be honest, the hate on Detroit hasn't been all that bad in regards to Stafford being in the Super Bowl. I think it could have been much worse. You saw obviously, some jokes on late night and some things, but I mean, it's been played to death that yes, Detroit sucks. Yes, that the Lions and their franchise have struggled and things like that. But bottom line, I do think that it's not as bad because the hope is high right now. The draft will kick in. You still see people defending the Lions. I mean, Zach Taylor's comments about Ben Johnson. You're starting to see a groundswell of positivity, even after a 3-win year. But remember, this is Detroit. That can turn real quickly in 2022. So now it's a prove-it year. Now it's an opportunity for Dan Campbell to build off of this and get a couple more wins in the coming weeks in this season in 2022, and then keep building. And I think the trust is high in Brad Holmes. The trust is high that talent is coming, that there's a young core that got experience, that Dan Campbell will also learn from some things, and the coaching staff, one more year together, might give you a chance at least to take some strides forward. Multi-year rebuild. So that's where it is right now. And now we're going to look to free agency, the draft, and to see how this team is restructured. So I'm interested to get your sense of it. I think the Stafford situation reached its crescendo when he got to the Super Bowl. I think people recognize you're not going to really change people's opinions. You stand where you stand. I'm thankful that I've put out there now several years all my stances. People really focused in on the argument. They shifted the argument in that they said, well, could Stafford ever win games? I think I said on this podcast thousands of times, it doesn't matter what his culpability was. At the time when he was negotiating a contract, whatever the reasoning is, if you want to highlight the debate, well, could he ever win? Okay, fine. You can stay with that argument. But bottom line, the argument came to a head when a GM was forced to give him dollars. Okay? And I was on the side, and many of us were on the side here at the network of, no, don't give him those dollars. It's not going to work. Whatever the reason is, whether it's his fault there, it just wasn't going to work. And maybe it's the pessimism of the organization. Maybe nobody subconsciously believed that the Lions would ever go all in and get him 4 wide receivers that could play, and 2 running backs, and an offensive line, and a defensive line, and a punter, and a kicker, and a head coach. It just was like kind of really hard to do in Detroit. So eventually speaking now, the Lions potentially, remember guys, they may go with another young quarterback when it's time to handle business, and you're hoping that you get the results like Joe Burrow got in year 2 in Cincinnati. But for Stafford, I think he deserves the time in the spotlight. Still the same guy, still having the opportunity to get it done. I'm curious, does he get it done? Because I'm trying to see it. I can picture the Rams winning. But part of me just likes the swagger of Joe Burrow. Part of me likes Jamar Chase. Part of me likes the story of the confidence that the Bengals have. I mean, it could be a very back and forth, really entertaining game that could come down to the wire. I see it being in the neighborhood of 23-20 either way. But like I said, until Stafford wins it, I'm going with the Bengals, I believe. But in all my predictions, I see the Rams. But I'm just itching with Burrow. But in the end, Stafford kind of has more of a feel of destiny than Burrow does. But man, Joe Burrow, I would not be shocked if it's a close game. Maybe it's the Rams, but if it gets out of hand, maybe the Bengals take advantage of some turnovers and get it out to a 14-point lead. If it goes that way, if it's a blowout, it's the Bengals. If it's close, maybe the Rams. But I've been predicting the Rams because it's at home, kind of Stafford and all that. But I just see a great game. It's hard to tell which way. I'm really on the fence on it, but I see a quality matchup, kind of the matchup that if it wasn't the Rams and the Chiefs, Rams and Bengals with Jamar Chase, Joe Burrow, Mixon, having an opportunity with the tight end, maybe that if he comes back from the MCL situation. I like this game, but when you just look at the sheer numbers, the Rams have a lot more talent. A lot.
Yeah, I mean, the Rams are more talented and probably a more balanced team. But I don't know. Do you believe in you believe in all the predictions that the Simpsons make? You ever see those and how they come true years later?
I've seen shit like that, but I have not peeked in lately.
So, they predicted Donald Trump was going to be president.
Yeah.
Just different random things. So I seen one today. I seen a screenshot of one today where they predicted the Bengals and the Rams in the playoffs, and the Bengals end up winning 34-31.
Yeah.
And if you want to take it a step further and you want to loop Detroit into it, not going the whole Matt Stafford route, remember the Detroit Lions played both these teams this year. Uh-huh. The Detroit Lions played both of these teams and lost in consecutive weeks to both of these teams. The Bengals beat the pants off of the Lions at home 34-11, while the Rams beat the Lions 28-19 in LA. So, I mean, if you wanna do some deductive reasoning there, it looks like the Bengals, and I'm hoping it's the Bengals, should win this game. I think Joe Burrow, I love the moxie. I love the swagger. I love the way the dude carries himself. Joe Burrow is everything that you want in a franchise quarterback. He is what a number one pick should look like. And I hope he gets the job done. I think you're right. I think the Rams are a little bit more balanced all the way across the line, right? I mean, you've got two Pro Bowl, All-Pro, Hall of Fame defensive ends on the Rams team. You've got defensive tackles that can make plays. You've got a linebacking core that can fly all around the field. You've got a Pro Bowl cornerback. You go to the offensive side. You said it yourself, right? You've got multiple wide receivers that can make plays up and down the field. You've got multiple running backs in that backfield. You've got a pretty solid offensive line that can protect Matt Stafford. And then you've got Matt Stafford as your quarterback. And yes, I believe he's the same Matt Stafford that you had here. I don't think there's necessarily anything different or anything special. I think he's a guy who will throw for multiple touchdowns in a game, and I think he's a guy who will throw a back-breaking, crippling interception at the exact wrong time. And I think when the game starts to slide a little bit on him, he's always trying to make a play, and by him trying to make a play instead of taking what's given to him, that's when he gets in trouble. Now you look at the Bengals, I think that offense is explosive. I think what you have with that wide receiving core is sick. I think Joe Burrow is on, I think it's just a scotch too early to call him elite, but he is as elite of a quarterback as you're going to get. I'm just going to say he is an elite quarterback in year 2 of playing with the Bengals. Like, banana boats, okay? And then you look at their defense. Now, I don't think it's as nicely equipped as what the Rams have, but I think it's a defense that can make your life a little bit of a nightmare. I think they can get to the quarterback. I think they can force turnovers. I think they can do all the things that they have to do. I hope the Bengals win this game, and I'm going to go out on a little bit of a limb, and I'm going to predict the Bengals to win a close one. I think this game ends a little bit more along the lines of 24-23. It'll probably come down to McPherson, is that their kicker? Will probably come down to one of his field goals for Cincinnati to win this. But look, I'm looking forward to this. I think it's going to be a great game. I think it's going to be absolutely splendid.
I think it's going to be good. I'm of the opinion that I think a lot of Detroiters are going to be split. There's going to be a lot of support for Stafford, but still a lot of people that, potentially speaking, if you look ahead to the universe, you know that if the Lions get number 32, number 31 is going to be a Hall of Famer. And it's going to be probably Lloyd or somebody awesome that people are going to love, maybe the wide receiver that you're looking for. going down a spot could be impactful. You never know. But we'll see what happens in regards to. We'll finally realize what pick the Lions will get with the second of the Rams' first round picks in 2022. We'll finally figure it out that day. We'll see what happens with this game. I think it's going to be good. Matthew Stafford, I think, will play well. Cooper Kupp should shine. Van Jefferson, OBJ, I think will perform really well. It's just too much. And really, the key I think that people are looking at is, will Aaron Donald knock Joe Burrow out of the game? Because that offensive line of the Bengals is atrocious. And the most sacked quarterback, it's crazy. It's crazy to think that guy had that much success while getting his ass handed to him, sacked that many times.
Imagine if you gave him an offensive line. Imagine how he'd cut you up.
And there you go. That's all fans that look at it and say, well, Joe Burrow did it in year 2. That's all we were saying with Matthew Stafford is, okay, after year 6, 7, 8, it just doesn't kind of go that way. It doesn't really go that way in the NFL, where all of a sudden some guy just automatically turns it around. It just wasn't going to be a situation where you were going to see success in Detroit. So that's why they should have moved on faster. They should have handled their business, but they didn't. And luckily he did what he did, because he could, in essence, be the person that ends up turning things around for Detroit with those first round picks. If Brad Holmes and the caliber of what he can do does his job, then, Matthew Stafford can actually benefit the Lions, because it just never happened in Detroit. Now, one final thing. It is the trade deadline today. We'll try to drop this before it comes out, but I think it's around 3, 4 o'clock on Thursday. You heard, Halliburton already got dismissed and got traded. I don't think the I don't think the Pistons and Troy Weaver are going to trade Jerami Grant. I don't know. I just don't see it. I think that for at least this year, if you did, the season's probably going to end up with the Pistons being a top 3 pick anyway. But if there's a trade opportunity out there, maybe it will end up taking place. So we'll see, but I don't see it. I don't know where you stand on it. To be honest, I just haven't watched a lot of the Pistons because it's kind of a hard watch. There are nights and I say, look, I'm one of those guys right now, full disclosure, out of every 4 Pistons game, I watch 1 to completion, and then I sit in on the media sessions, and it's kind of the same. There are situations in which this team goes so ice cold that they try to shoot threes, that their defense is not consistent. Killian Hayes is up and down. And then, of course, when Cade Cunningham gets hurt with the hip situation, it just makes it hard to watch, because it's not a team that has a lot of stars or players that you really can invest in just yet. But it's a young team. They're trying to figure it out. A lot of growing pains. But it's a hard thing to watch, because there's a lot of times where out of 6 shots, 5 of them don't go in. And they struggle from threes, are inconsistent. And there's actually just way better basketball out there if you can cleanse your palate with Milwaukee, with the Nets, with other franchises. You can get a lot more entertainment out of it. But Troy Weaver's got a task at hand. I think, the best case scenario is to trade him if you can get something back in return, capital and things like that. Get a nice return in a flip, but I don't see it. Until Troy Weaver does it, I don't see it.
I think you almost have to trade him. Yeah. I mean, his salary cap number is crazy right now, and this team seems to play so much better when he's not on the floor. And I don't know if it just allows better spacing for some of these guys, or if it puts Cade Cunningham in a position where he feels like he can be in control and exert himself. I'm not 100% sure what the deal is. Jerami Grant was a revelation last year. For some reason this year, it just doesn't really seem like it's meshed well. And it could just be the influx of new players. It could just be them trying to figure out their own position, and what they have to bring to this team. It's been weird. And if you're the Detroit Pistons, I think you almost have to trade him. Now, it sounds like they are asking for 2 picks. It sounds like they're asking for 2 first-round picks. That's a lot. It's a lot of capital. If I was working in the Pistons front office and I was trying to make this trade, I was trying to move this player, I think I'd be looking for a player with a lot of upside, a guy who I could bring in and he could make my roster and make my team better, he would have to obviously either be a role player, he'd have to be a starter. We prefer a starter, obviously, but he's going to have to be a guy who's going to have to contribute. And then you can get that other pick, whether it be a first round pick or whatever. Because if you're trading Jerami Grant, you're trading him to a team that's going to make a playoff run. So they're going to be at the back half of that draft. And in the NBA, when you're at the back half of that draft, it's kind of like good luck, you know? You good luck hitting on something there. It doesn't always work out. Now, I like what this team's been able to do, or I like what this front office has been able to do with their draft picks, especially some of their later draft picks. It's worked out well for them. But that being said, if I'm trading Jerami Grant, I'm trying to get a player to contribute now, and I'm trying to get a pick later. I don't necessarily need 2 picks, but I think he gets traded. I think they have to trade him.
Yeah, absolutely. Oh man, the Pistons, wings, same thing, you know, kind of ups and downs. You know, cause I'll say this, in regards to hockey, they don't do a great job promoting their shit. I'm going to tell you guys, look, I know their All-Star festivities were there. I am on Twitter, guys, a lot. I see the nice things you say. I see the not nice things you say. All I saw was one tweet that said that Dylan Larkin was part of the competition, but he didn't have it. That was it. That was about the extent of what I saw in regards to whatever it was he was participating in. I guess the game might have been on a Saturday this year. I barely paid attention to it. Hockey just needs to do a much better job of getting their shit out there in regards to publicity and things like that. With the Wings, I'm still pleasantly surprised by the things that they're doing. I peek in, kind of the same level of involvement, kind of maybe a little bit more, 2 out of every 5 games, kind of see what's going on. But in regards to hockey, man, the All-Star weekend happened and it just, okay, we 6 days off and here we go, second half of the year. Wings kind of in the push to get into the postseason. So we'll see how it goes with them. We'll check in the coming weeks. But yeah, I just, great. Dylan Larkin made the All-Star team. Okay. But that was about it. But I will say this. I will be present. Cameron hooked it up. I will be at the, Duel in the D on Saturday evening. I'm looking forward to that. State taking on Michigan, probably from the experiences that I see online, cause I'm not really paying attention to college hockey, that Michigan kind of always kicks Michigan State's ass in these things. I know from, the times you've gone down there, they've always won. So I will be there just kind of, what do they say, hanging around, malingering and just, be in the press box trying to be like, okay, how do you cover hockey? So I look forward to seeing how it goes this weekend. But, everything's going well. And, I'm looking forward to everything going on with, the world of Detroit sports in the coming weeks.
Yeah, I'll be down there too, so we'll try to meet up. That'll be fun.
You're down there too? You're going down there?
Yeah, I'm going down there as well. Me and my cousin Jeff are going, so.
Hell yeah. You make it a tradition? Yeah. We make it a tradition. That's good shit.
Yeah.
I think everything's going very well in the world of podcasting, Lions, so much stuff going on in sports, wrestling, everything is really hot right now in the month of February. Make sure, everyone, you follow Adam the Jock Straczynski at Adam RSTROZ. Follow the network at Detroit Podcast. If you've agreed or disagreed with any of our takes, feel free, share them. We like to read them. We like to go back and forth, debate our takes, and see how it shakes out in the end. And bottom line, we just enjoy being in the mix. Whether we're right, whether we're wrong, whether we have great takes, bad takes, we just like being in the conversation, and you guys have allowed us to be that way since 2013. Anywhere you listen to your favorite podcast, we are there. Just type in Detroit Sports Podcast. And when it pops up with the old English D, you hit that subscribe button. And if you are so inclined, leave us a review. Good, bad, or indifferent. Let us know. I've been peeking at the reviews. Some great, some critiquing, which I love. Very much so that you guys are paying attention to what we're doing. And it is great to see. Leave a 5-star review. And keep our ratings quite high. I think we're above a 4.7 out of 5. So that puts us in good standing. And in the podcast community, if you ever are out there and you're on Twitter and someone says, hey, is there a podcast that you like? Make sure you tag at Detroit Podcast, because Adam and I, 2 of the realest motherfuckers you're gonna find out there. And we're not stopping. We are keeping this thing going strong as we hit and approach episode number 500. only getting bigger, only getting badder, only getting a little bit more entertaining as we progress through the sports world. Thanks, cuz. I look forward to next week. I really can't wait. It is the best hour of my week.